Okay. Good morning, everybody. It is my great pleasure to present our panel for the day that's called Harmonizing Melodies and Styles and Exploring Intersection of Music, Fashion, and Web3. And we'll kick off with the introduction. So my name is Irina. I have been in Polkadot ecosystem for about 3 years. I joined the community in 2020 as an ambassador, and ever since, it's been a fantastic journey with this community, with amazing talented people. And this is a true rabbit hole that once you step into Web3, it's very difficult to dive out. And I'm sure many of you will agree with that. I have my own company, which is a Web3 advisory, BQ9, and I also very closely collaborate with Unique Network, which is an NFT parachain on Polkadot. And today with me on this panel, I have Alberto Viera, who is Developer Relations Manager at Moonbeam, Polkadot parachain, Sergio Mottola, President of Public Pressure, and Stefan King, Managing Director of Public Pressure. Alberto, I'll start with you. Could you please introduce yourself, Moonbeam, what do you do, and also how did you come into Web3 and Polkadot, very briefly?
Thanks for the intro, Irina. So as she said, I'm Alberto. I'm originally from Venezuela. I actually joined the Web3 space kind of like in 2013, you know, like running Bitcoin nodes in my laptop for fun, not as an investment or anything. But I've always been super interested about technology and what like actually Web3 unlocks, right? After, you know, some time in my life, I actually joined, like actually started working full-time Web3 in 2020. I joined the Moonbeam project very early on, and if you don't know about Moonbeam, we are a parachain. A parachain means a blockchain that is part of the Polkadot ecosystem, and so the idea of Polkadot is you have many blockchains that provide something for the ecosystem as a whole, and we provide sort of like a smart contract platform where you can build applications and things for end users.
Thank you, Alberto. Sergio, what about yourself? How did you discover Polkadot and Web3, and what does Public Pressure do?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Serg. Can you hear me fine? Yeah. So I got in crypto, I think, quite early, like back in 2014, 15. I mean, the driver is always what's going on, what's new. I mean, I've been in innovation for over 20 years, so it's always about searching what's new and understanding and what is the impact. Really got to understand the potential of disruption when I had the honor to work for a small country government, small country sitting in the middle of Italy, and I actually work on the regulatory aspect. So I really looked at blockchain and digital assets, asking me myself what it is, what's an NFT, what's an utility token, what is a security token, how it differs from shares. So I spent almost 3 years basically. And that's where I clicked and understood the potential. And when I said myself, this stuff is going to be here and it's going to stay here for a long time because it's game-changing for a lot of aspects. Public Pressure came into the picture in 2020. I think we are one of those projects that were born in COVID. It was initially founded by Alberto Viera, which is one of the founders as a music magazine. So I've been in music since, I don't know, 30 years, and he founded a brand. I mean, Public Pressure, the name says everything. It was about streaming came into the picture, artists lost the product, so how do we help them out? So he worked with a lot of emerging, a lot of independent, trying to figure out how you navigate a complex industry. And at some point we clicked all together with Giulia Maresca and Francesca Versace, who have more of a fashion background, in understanding how we could use Web3 to actually solve that problem. So effectively, we say that we are a music company, which is leveraging technology to somehow redesign the underlying economics, products, and relationship in any industry.
Fantastic, and this is where we're going to dive in today. How does technology help to transform businesses, and what is the value that technology adds to businesses? And Stefan, how did you get to Web3 and music industry?
I'm the new boy in the team, really. I joined Public Pressure 2 months ago after a long career in the music industry, from starting off as a tour manager, then becoming a manager, then owning record labels, publishing companies, and then I spent 10 years at Believe Digital running their international expansion in their UK company, trying to get people to understand what the positives of streaming. And then I had some time being a consultant, and then Sergio called me and we got talking about the space, and it seemed to me a really exciting period for Web3 and very similar to the expansion of digital distribution, which was when I joined Believe in 2009, 2010. It was quite exciting. We were having conversations with people that didn't believe in streaming. It seems quite funny now, but I had conversations with very large independents who told me that digital, streaming and digital was a passing fad. And I'm now having conversations with music companies who think that Web3 potentially could be a passing fad, or they don't understand it, or they don't understand the possibilities.
Indeed, I cannot agree more that this is the most exciting time for music and fashion industry and Web3, because just in the past couple of months in Polkadot ecosystem, we had two big announcements. Luxury brand Dundas collaborated with Unique Network to create proof of attendance for their Paris Fashion Week, as well as use POAPs and NFTs as a community building tool to create this experience for the guests of the week and for the customers. And public pressure came with the brand Diesel to do an NFT drop. And you have maybe seen a recent announcement by Louis Vuitton and Farfetch and all the big brands who have made a revolution in Web2 together with many fashion brands about 10 years ago. Luxury companies used to have that very in-person experience. And just like today, we were discussing music companies, right? You buy a CD and you own it, you have it, you don't really listen for it online. The same was with fashion. You go to the store, you have an experience of buying a luxury item, and it had to be lived in person. But around 2010, that was disrupted by e-commerce, and brands decided to go and sell online. So with Web3, with the token economy and decentralization and the promise to empower creators, how do you see this technology transforming business models? Because we often talk about use cases, but on this panel today, I would like to dive deeper into the why businesses or creators who are self-employed individual sort of small businesses would want to join this space, and what is the value for them? Sergio, could you start with the experience with Diesel and your vision for the Web3 music and fashion intersection?
Yeah, it's a very complex question. I'll try to be simple. What we saw in the relationship with brands like Diesel, especially fashion, because our two founders, they have like 25 years, 30 years in fashion, is the opportunity to really differentiate the product. Like the example that we always used, a couple of examples that we always use in the meeting. One was back in the days, collecting the CD of a fashion show was something very popular. People would really queue up to bring it home, say, I've been there. No? So it's a sort of cultural ownership. It's about the curation. It's about what the brand wants to deliver with that playlist and all the creative work which has been done behind it. Is this happening on Spotify? Zero. I mean, you have a very simple business model, $10 a month, you access the whole worldwide catalog, but I mean, navigating yourself in discovery, building, is absolutely zero, flat. There's nothing like really, really good. And that's how we see the brand coming into the picture, which I think, and then you have all the underlying, somehow, economics. Like the principle which I always work on is that the music industry, for example, that maybe Stephen can correct me if I'm wrong, but we have seen a lot of innovation that touched the way that we consumed music. So starting from the cassette, the CDs, and then we got to streaming. It was about an easier engagement, a more like seamless engagement and consumption, but we never touched the economics. With Web3, we can really use the platform, the network, the peer-to-peer, the decentralization, the token, to really sit down and understand how am I going to replicate streaming in Web3? How am I going to replicate the ownership, the collectability, the merch, the marketing, the relationship between artist and fan? So you can remap all these economic transactions and you can underpin them with the technology. That's, I think, the innovation that we're undergoing right now. That's the main goal. It's like restructuring the economics of an industry.
But the fundamental problem is that integrating the music industry into Web3, it goes back to copyright law, goes back to who owns the catalog, goes back to their understanding of what Web3 means. And for the diesel drops, we've negotiated with you know, amongst others, Sony, AWOL, Warner's, Universal, and with all the independent labels and independent distributors. And they all start in various positions on it, how they want to exert control over their rights. And what we're finding at the moment is obviously that DIY artists who sign their content through easy distribution methods like DistroKid and TuneCore and CD Baby are the most ready to negotiate properly under the terms that we're offering to do NFTs. And the worst ones are the bigger groups of companies, because they see what we're doing as a bit of a land grab, in the same way that maybe even Napster at the beginning, when it was an illegal service, was a land grab. And on top of that, we've got the complexity of music law, which is, you know, we've got the law for the copyright holders of the audio, but we've also got the laws based around the ownership of the actual songs, so the publishing companies. So we're having to deal with two companies who've never cut these deals before. And frankly, most of them, like a lot of us, don't understand what it means, don't understand the possibilities. You know, like a major record company's lawyer said to me the other day that he didn't understand secondary sales, you know, and which is fairly basic, I think, in understanding of NFTs. So those are the issues that that Web3 has to deal with. It has to deal with the complexity of the rights ownership pattern from the indies to the majors, and the complexity of what publishing means and what their claim is on a possible drop.
What I would say there, just to wrap up, is to that one thing that people don't really understand about Web3 is that it's completely transparent, right? And it's like programmable code that can be really easily executed, and it's completely transparent, right? And so if there's issues with, like, you know, copyrights and stuff like that, you can easily program for each specific niche or like usability, right? You can specifically program each use case. And the beauty of Web3 is that it's all there. It's all public, it's all transparent as it needs to be, right? And so, and going back to what Sergio was saying, I think what's important is that I think a lot of the pieces are there, and the important part is how you provide a seamless user experience. That it was how basically Spotify came to be, right? They just, you know, people were thinking that he was, like, what Spotify was doing was crazy, but they just provided a great user experience for like a flat rate, and people didn't really care about copyright, like users didn't really care about copyrights. They just wanted a good user experience, something that brought value to their lives. And I think, you know, Sergio's example of what Web3 can achieve with what he was mentioning with Diesel is bringing something extra to the user that is Spotify is not doing.
But part of our job is explaining that to music companies. What extra can we bring? Because they think we're just doing a land grab. What are the fundamentals of Web3 that might help them? Now, the people that are getting that are DIY artists who are doing it all themselves anyway. They don't have marketing budgets. They don't have a vision for how the market might change, but they want in, and they want in really quickly. And it's just quite an interesting dynamic. And fundamentally, the issues are commercial negotiations. Not really, it's backed up by right structure, but it's commercial negotiation. How much can I get for? How much can I turn you over for? How much can I take in advance for you because you need my name or my product? Those are some of the issues we're dealing with. And they're not all solved by by technology, you know, listing who owns the rights and how the rights are divided and what happens on a secondary sale. That's pretty much what these companies have done for years. They've done it really not in a very efficient way, and they've done it differently in every territory of the world. So blockchain could be a very useful tool to standardize copyright ownership and how you divide, how you track and stuff like that. But there's a real reluctance to engage with it because everybody's got their fiefdoms. You know, you've got a collection society in the UK who doesn't deal with a collection society in Brazil who hates the one in Japan. You know, you've got those, and you've got the one in Japan who actually thinks they're bigger than the one in the UK. No, so you've got those issues, and then you've got the structure of the music industry being based not on a global offering generally, but being offered on a territorial basis. So the MD of the UK gets his bonus out of the UK. He doesn't get his bonus if his UK signed artist is huge in Japan. So that's another problem for us because we're looking at stuff that isn't defined by territorial limits, which is a global offering. So he goes, well, I don't really care if your NFT is big in Indonesia. I don't earn from that. So we're dealing with some fundamental problems between the business, but mainly commercial, I think.
And can we, in that sense, benefit the artist? And do you see a potential transformation of the industry into going to every individual artist and building communities and disrupting businesses? So empowering individual artists who want to come to, say, a platform that will give them the opportunity to mint NFTs, to upload their work, and they won't really need to work with record labels or distribution companies, but they're like...
I think it's quite simplistic to say that nobody needs to work with a distributor or a record label because they all provide services and they all provide finance and they're all good at certain things. They have great talent acquisition departments, they have good marketing departments, they have good video departments. So we've got to accept that that part of the business which dominates streaming, I mean 70% of streaming is major labels, 30% is independents. The independents have grown by 10% in the past 5 years and are going to continue to grow as DIY services become more effective. Who we're attracting at the moment is the independent artist, but we want to provide a service to everyone else because there are key elements of what we do that could benefit the artists, but the artists are tied into contracts with the majors that are long-term contracts and contracts about the division of assets. I mean, the funny thing about everybody slagging off streaming and saying the artists don't earn any money, the record companies earn loads of money, and generally they pay the artists really badly. So it's actually not that streaming doesn't pay, it's that the record companies keep the bulk of the profit from streaming and pay the artists a very small amount. So if you sign direct to Spotify via TuneCore, you get 100% of the money you generate. And lots of big artists have done that. Chance the Rapper, being one, was generating millions a year through TuneCore with no intermediaries there. So there's a choice in the market, and the choice is the same in NFT and who you work with and which companies are good in this offering is critical. Which companies have viewed what's going to happen in the secondary market, which companies are positioning themselves for utilities, which companies think that there's an element of blockchain development that could be used in streaming that actually might help, or might benefit in terms of what you were saying about trackability, rights, and royalty payments. That might help that. And it's that part of the business that we're in at the moment where no one is certain how this is all going. You know, we can look at all the companies that were on before us and say, well, we'd like to use them to do that, and them to do that, and them to do that. No one seems to have an answer how we deal with the complexities of the legal status of copyright.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I mean, this value proposition of the artist get back in power, I mean, is all true, but the artist maybe is in power in the example that Stephen had just made, so it doesn't really need Web3 to really get back into power. It's more, that's where the economic, I think, argument comes into the picture, because you are basically redesigning the supply chain. Like, one of the ways I explain Web3 is the traditional industry in Web 2 are very linear, right? Take, I don't know, shipping, supply, when you look at real products. Now they move from production to the second party, to the party, to the fourth party. There's no relationship between the end of the supply chain and the beginning of the supply chain. Even recycling, no? The guy that produced the bottle in China cannot reward the guy in US that is going to buy it and is going to recycle it. In blockchain, suddenly, it can happen because they sit in an ecosystem. So the supply chain is completely different, as dynamic, which are not dependent on where you sit. And that's where you can start really working with these guys. Maybe the artist, instead of staying at the beginning of the supply chain because he's the guy producing the music, and then at some point it goes either to a distributor or either to a label, and at the end of the day he doesn't know that you're going to listen to his music. Maybe it's the guy that sits in front and all the other guy sits in the back providing services, but that relationship has been redesigned. That's, I think, really what we're doing. We're like putting all these people on a table or in a room,
yeah,
and tell them that now they have new rules and new tools, and they can actually play a different game. And then we interact with them to understand how this different game really is going to work. And Diesel, that's what we somehow have done.
And here I see really the importance of multi-chain and actually the collaboration and what Polkadot provides in terms of bringing different tools like identities, like specific NFT chains, or even maybe in the next 10 years, a brand, a record label, or an artist would want to run his own infrastructure and have his own token, because that will give him economic power and possibilities. Alberto, from the technical point of view, do you see these platforms being easy to use, and what are the challenges to overcome? And what are the types of platforms that you see potentially can be introduced to the industry?
Yeah, definitely. So just to finish your point there, I think what really Web3 brings into the table is this traceability, right? I mean, what he was mentioning is that from the first, supply chain, the first provider really lose everything. Every time there's a middleman, there's information that is lost, basically, right? And then when you end at the end of the supply chain, there's he has no information or clue about what happened at the early stage. In blockchain, the beauty of it is that he was mentioning that everyone is a single room, and that room is the blockchain, right? And every information is traceable to its root. If you go into blockchain, you can know the first transaction a person made in the entire history of the world, right? And that's the beauty of it. So going back to sort of this multi-chain world and how Polkadot actually can be involved there is that the Polkadot motto is that there will be specific blockchains to specific use cases, right? I was discussing with them and just joking around, hey, what about in the future, public pressure can become its own blockchain, right? It can just migrate off whatever ecosystem they're in, and they can just be, okay, I have enough sort of bandwidth to say I need to build my own blockchain. But that comes with a lot of difficulties, right? And so if you're part of Polkadot, a lot of things are given to you. And so, but then, if public pressure is its own blockchain, I'm not saying that there will be, but there will be then need to talk to other blockchains in the world, because if not, we're just going to be I have my own internet network with my family, but I cannot talk with my friends in another house. And so that is where true interoperability, it's important. And that's why Polkadot has, the technology that Polkadot's built on top of, it's really key to unlock a lot of ecosystems of blockchains that work together for the greater good. And for an end user perspective, the idea is that end users don't really need to know that they're dealing with blockchain, right? They will just use it as the background, or the background technology that the tech or the application that they're building, that Spotify or whatever it is running on. But they don't really need to understand that they're using that, right? And that, for me, is when blockchain will unlock its full potential. When we're able to build applications where users don't really understand that they're using blockchain. If you connect right now, you take out your phone, you go to Facebook, Instagram, you're not thinking what server are you connected to, or you're not thinking if your mom is using the phone, because that just blocks your internet connectivity. You're just opening your phone and using it, and that is the experience that we need to aim for in Web3.
But while, absolutely, and while that's true, that's great. But the difficult bit for me is I'm on the interface between the two things, and I'm trying to explain to copyright holders, owners, who are individuals to major corporations, how everything works. And the education process of what Web3 is about is not effective at the moment, because we're not sure exactly the full range of what the offerings are. So when I'm going into companies and I'm going into, very bright lawyers that are used to doing licensing deals for full catalogs to companies all around the world, they look at that business model. Right? They don't look at the business model for what Web3 can provide. They look at an old business model. And part of what I'm trying to do in being, a member of UK trade organizations is to get people like you to come along and explain the background to the technology that will enable me to make the sales afterwards or make the acquisitions afterwards, because I can't explain it the way you can. But it's a really, even like the BPI, the organization for all the record companies in the UK, which represents the indies to the majors, even they, as soon as I joined Public Pressure, 2 days in, they called me and said, come in and present to us. I was like 2 days in, I went, I know nothing. I know nothing. But I need Sergio to come, and I need you to come, and I need, lots of other people to come in. But the fact that they, as a trade organization, engaged with, I was a member of their board years ago, so they know me, but the fact that they engaged with me so promptly shows the opportunities there, but the education level is, and the music companies' understanding of the possibilities aren't, and maybe the products aren't even there yet.
But that's I think one of the reasons why, sorry, I just come in a second, when talk about blockchain and Public Pressure, I already said no way. Like, I'm not gonna derail the work we're doing now in understanding how to bridge between the technology provider and the industry, because that's where we see it. We were born as a decentralized application, and our job is basically to take technology problems and architecture out of the way and understanding how we can get people to adopt it. That's what we wonder on a daily basis, because there should be no need to sit down in an industry environment and explain the benefits of decentralization, how blockchain works, the transaction, the validation. Who cares? Who knows in the room how electricity works? Like, you know how the grid works? No, you just plug your phone in there and you charge it.
I think to consumers, to retail, you're absolutely right. To the industry, you have to explain. The industry know the dynamics of streaming.
You have to explain the benefits.
No, you have to explain how it works.
Because we're running out of time for the panel. Just to wrap up, because this is a fantastic conversation, and what I'm hearing here is that we do need more education, we do need more advocacy, and we do need to sit all at the round table, technical people, business people, brands, marketers, and consumers, and have a conversation. And this conversation is actually what happens a lot in Polkadot ecosystem, because it's very community central. And Polka House, thanks to Alex, thanks to spaces like that, we can have that conversation. And just to close this discussion, 3 things you want to tell people who want to join blockchain today: the opportunity and where to start, and also your plan for the next year.
Yeah, so I'll take that first. So I'm working in blockchain full time now, but I'm a mechanical engineer with a PhD in internal combustion engines. So really the background that you have doesn't really matter. It's not a blocker. It's more just having the gut, having the will. And if you're truly passionate about what Web3 is unlocking, just dedicating time to say, this is what I want to do in the future, and just focusing on it. So that would be my goal, like if you want to join Web3 from an educational perspective. I think, in Moonbeam, what we're going to start working on is sort of what I mentioned on like providing experiences that end users feel more sort of like, related to. It's not about keys, it's not about blockchains, it's about experiences for end users. And so we're going to work a lot with projects that are, in the gaming industry, in the music industry, and so on, so that the experiences are there, but they're using blockchain technology underneath, right? So they're reaping the benefits of blockchain without actually maybe not even knowing that they're using it. So.
Thank you, Alberto. Sergio?
But the main reason that you want to be in Web3 is because in the future you want to be free. And the more you're going to stay in Web2, the more you're not going to be free to do anything you want to do, because, they can stop you any day, any time. So that at least is my drive. That's why I want to be here. It's going to be exciting because, again, we're going to redesign a lot of human and economical interaction, and it has to be a fun process where, like what we show today, you sit down with different minds, different approaches, and you really whiteboard all this new, exciting interaction that you can design. What is next for us is cracking those conversations. So I don't know if it's going to take 1 month, 2 years, like 10, but we need to crack the conversation with the industry and on board. A lot of independent. I think our goal is going to be really work with emerging independent, have all of them sitting at the table and discuss how we're going to make them good.
I think for me it's really about education of what Web3 is and what the possibilities are, and selling that in a coherent, transparent way to all the rights holders, from the individual artists to the major record companies. That's what I'd like to achieve, and I think, it is achievable. I think it'll take, us proving it, and I think we are proving it. If you look at our drops, the way we're integrating music in fashion into our drops, and the publicity we're getting, the sales we're getting, our last drop sold out in 24 hours, 1,300 units, which is pretty fantastic at $40 a head from, Diesel and an unknown music artist who just earned quite a lot of money from that they wouldn't have earned that year. So we've proved that there's an economic uplift for the artist. We've proved to the brand that we can do an effective job. The brand came out of it looking really good. So I think in a small way, we've proved one opportunity. What we need to do is look at what the other opportunities all based around that one are, and see how we interact with the rights holders to make it work.
Thank you very much for this discussion. And great people build great projects, and the opportunities are infinite, like the polka dots in the ecosystem. Inspiration unlocks the future, and technology will catch up. And on this note, I would like to thank you for your attention and thank our guests. Yep. That's a wrap.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.